I'm Denise Cross, 49, and a man who had been at my company for 6 weeks told me I no longer had a job there after 22 years. Let me start from the beginning. From the fall of 22 years ago. I was 27. Just divorced. My daughter Maya was 7. My ex-husband Derek moved to Arizona. His reason was one sentence. I need a fresh start. He left me with our child and a $1,200 mortgage. We had been married for 8 years. He walked out with one suitcase and his CD collection. I gave him those CDs for his birthday. Maya asked where he went. I said Dad lives somewhere else now. She nodded once. 7 years old, and she nodded like a grown-up. She knew not to ask again. I needed a job. A paycheck. Something that let me pick up my kid by 5 and keep her in piano lessons. I made myself a promise. Whatever happened to me, Maya's life would not shrink because of adult mistakes. Morrison Manufacturing was north of Colorado Springs. A gray 2-story building in an industrial park. They made industrial valve parts. Seal rings inside pipes. Gaskets inside gas valves. Not glamorous. But they keep a city running. I applied for receptionist. The production manager interviewed me himself. An old guy named Gus, around 60 years old. His fingers were permanently stained black from machine oil. The kind that gets into your fingerprints and never washes out. His coffee mug said "World's Okayest Boss." He looked at my half-page resume. Set it down. Looked me in the eye. Can you type fast? Kind of. Do you know Excel? A little bit. He nodded once. Start tomorrow. That was the entire interview. No psych test and no 3 rounds. No panel of people asking trick questions. 22 years ago, a job was just a handshake. I walked out and Gus called after me. 7:30 sharp. Coffee machine is on the 2nd floor. You grind the beans yourself. I sat at that front desk for 2 full years. I answered every phone call. I poured coffee for visitors and the sales team. I made copies of quotes and filed them. I pointed clients toward the restroom. The whole company had under 40 employees in those days. I knew every single person by name. Gus took his coffee black with no sugar. Mike in sales was terrified of his wife catching him smoke. Carlos in the warehouse had a son at community college. Linda in accounting was secretly saving to open a bakery. She showed me her business plan once. It was written on a paper napkin. The front desk is a strange position. You sit at the door where everyone enters. Everyone passes you to get inside. You see every face. Who is in a bad mood? Who did not sleep last night? Who just got bad news? Who is pretending things are fine? After 2 years, I was not just answering phones. I was reading people. I was watching how this whole small world fit together. It was not a job to me. It was a place. My place. One Wednesday about 2 years in, the logistics coordinator quit. His wife found work in Denver. The whole family had to move. Gus walked up to my desk and leaned on the counter. Denise, you look at those shipping slips every single day. More than anyone else in this building. Do you want to try running logistics? I said I never studied it. He said you have been studying it for 2 years. You just do not know you have been studying it. Every shipping slip that passes your desk, you have looked at thousands. You know what should arrive when better than anyone here. You are already doing the job in your head. I am just offering you a different title. He paused and looked at me in a different way. You are not staying at the front desk forever, Denise. You do not belong at the front desk. He said it the exact same way he said the coffee machine is on the 2nd floor. Not a compliment and not encouragement. Just a plain statement of fact. That sentence rang inside my head for a very long time. Because nobody had ever told me before that I belonged somewhere higher. My first 10 years at Morrison went exactly like that. Not because I was smart or talented. I had a high school diploma and nothing else. I got ahead by doing the things nobody else wanted to do. Weekends counting inventory by hand. Phone calls from truck drivers at 4 in the morning when an engine blew. Shipping schedules calculated on paper when the system crashed. One Christmas, a blizzard shut down every highway in the state. Our supplier shipments were stranded halfway across Colorado. Clients called every hour demanding their parts. I sat alone in that office for 3 straight days. December 23rd and 24th and 25th. Calling backup suppliers and rerouting shipments. Adjusting every order by hand on a yellow legal pad. Maya spent that Christmas at her grandmother's house. I missed it completely. The only Christmas I ever missed because of work. I remember driving there at 11 at night through the falling snow. Maya had not gone to sleep. She sat on the couch in her pajamas waiting for me. I asked why she was not in bed. She said, "Waiting for you." 7 years old. On her lap was a cookie she saved for me. It was broken into 3 pieces. That was the moment I knew I could not miss another one. Then we got a new ERP computer system. Everyone was terrified of learning it. Warehouse workers all the way up to department managers. I spent an entire month on it by myself. Every night after Maya went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table under a single lamp. I read that 400-page English manual cover to cover. Many of the technical words I did not know. I had only a high school education. I looked up every word one by one in a dictionary. I filled 4 spiral notebooks with notes. After that month, I was the only person in the company who truly understood the system. Then I started teaching everyone else. Not in a classroom with a whiteboard. One person at a time. Carlos was afraid of the scanner gun. His hands shook when he held it. I pulled up a chair beside him and watched him scan 50 boxes until his hands stopped shaking. Mike was afraid of entering wrong data. I told him the system tells you when you make a mistake. It is not a judge who punishes you. It is just a calculator. It does not get angry. It just waits for you to fix the error. You only truly know you have learned something when you have to teach it to someone else. I learned that lesson the hard way. Teaching Carlos to scan a box taught me more about that system than the manual ever could. At 35, the company restructured. Gus called me into his office and closed the door. "Operations needs a new manager," he said. "I put your name forward to the board." They had some hesitation. I asked why. Gus said because they do not remember who actually held this place together all these years. But I remember. That day I became operations manager. My business card no longer said logistics coordinator. Maya was 15 that year. She picked up my new card from the kitchen counter and looked at it for a long time. Denise Cross and operations manager. She read the title out loud in a serious voice. "That sounds really important," she said. I told her it is just a job title. She shook her head at me. "No, Mom, and it is not just okay. It is really important what you have done." A 15-year-old girl using a grown-up voice to say really important. Then she hugged me tight. That hug stayed inside my head for many years. At 40, I was director of operations. 65 people reported to me. My department budget was $4.3 million a year. Every single morning, I still arrived at 7 sharp. Earlier than anyone else in the building. I ground my own coffee beans. It was not that I distrusted the company machine. It was the sound of the grinder. The smell of fresh grounds hitting the air. That was how my day began for 22 years. Then I walked the shop floor before the shift started. Not an inspection and not a patrol. Just a quiet walk through the space. Looking at the machines and the people. Listening to the sounds. A factory floor has a living sound. Before the morning shift starts, it is quiet. Just the low hum of the space heaters. Then the machines wake up one at a time. The stamping press starts its deep rhythmic punch. It sounds like a slow heartbeat. The CNC machines hiss as coolant sprays. The conveyor belts begin their low, steady hum. When you have spent enough years in that space, your body syncs to those sounds. You do not need a clock on the wall. You hear a pitch change by half a note and know it is time to check. This knowledge gets into your bones. You do not learn it from a manual. You live it until it becomes part of you. Maya learned many things in the Morrison parking lot. Not just how to ride a bike. On Saturdays, she rode circles on the empty asphalt while I watched from the second-floor window. Later, she learned Excel at the spare desk in my office corner. She learned to write professional emails and talk to adults. Gus treated her like his own granddaughter. Every time she came, he pulled a Hershey's bar from his drawer. Always milk chocolate. She told him she wanted to be a lawyer. Gus looked at her very seriously and said, "If your mom ever has to sue someone, it will not be because she did something wrong." Then he winked. Maya laughed so hard she snorted. The day she got into the University of Colorado, I moved her into her freshman dorm. I carried her mini fridge up 3 flights of stairs. The old building had no elevator. We sat on her tiny bed eating ice cream from the dining hall. She talked about her course schedule and which professors excited her. I was not listening to the words. I was looking at her face and her hands. This person I had raised entirely by myself for 18 years. Sitting on a bed she picked in a dorm she chose. "Mom, are you listening?" "I am listening." "Your eyes look red." "It is just allergies." That night I came home and stood in the doorway of her empty bedroom. One hand on the doorframe. I stood there a very long time. Her band posters still on the wall. Half a bottle of pink nail polish on the nightstand. I could smell her strawberry shampoo on the pillowcase. I sat alone in the dark living room and poured myself a glass of wine. I spoke the words out loud to the wall. "You raised her by yourself. You did that completely on your own." Then I thought, what comes next for me? I thought I knew the answer. I thought Morrison would be where I retired. In 15 more years, someone would pat my shoulder and say this woman gave us 37 years. Everyone would clap. I would hand the keys to the next person. That was how the story was supposed to go. I was wrong about all of it. Year 22. Gus retired. His party was on the back lawn behind the building. He grilled the steaks himself on a small portable grill. Gus never put salt on his steak. He said the meat had its own flavor and did not need help. He stood among all the people he had hired over 3 decades. He held up a bottle of beer. "I was never your boss," he said. "I was the guy you hired to keep trouble off your backs." Then he looked straight at me across the grass. "Denise knows what to do now. She does not need me anymore." That was the last time I saw the old Morrison. The new CEO was Patricia from Boston. She had worked on Wall Street before pivoting to manufacturing. At the first all-hands meeting, she said manufacturing had the biggest transformation opportunity, and she was here to unlock it. She was clearly a smart woman. But she had never spent 10 minutes on a factory floor. The first time she visited the shop, she wore high heels. On a factory floor with oil and metal shavings and rubber marks from forklift tires. She stood at the entrance and did not walk inside. She looked around and nodded and turned and left. Maybe 40 seconds total. Her first hire was a new COO from outside. From Boston. Richard Farr. 35 years old with an MBA. Previously a partner at a consulting firm called Brindle and Cross. His LinkedIn profile was a string of words I had to read twice. Operational transformation and strategic realignment and stakeholder value optimization. Not one line about ever setting foot on a factory floor. Not one line about managing so much as a stockroom. The first time I saw him, Patricia was giving him a tour. He wore dark brown leather dress shoes with polished soles. Brand new shoes that had never touched concrete. You do not wear leather soles into a working factory. There is grease on the ground and metal dust in the air. You wear leather soles anyway. It is a signal. I do not belong here and I do not plan to start. First department meeting. I had prepared 40 minutes of material. 3 pages of operations data and key metrics and year-over-year comparisons. Waste reduction numbers going back 14 years. Gus taught me this. Numbers do not lie on their own. But you have to speak for them or nobody hears what they say. I was halfway through when Richard cut me off. Denise, and these processes sound very robust. He used that word. Robust. In business school, that means too old and too slow and unwilling to change. A polite way of saying obsolete. But the market is shifting fast, he continued. We need a more agile rhythm. Sprint cycles and cross-functional teams and flattened decision-making. He spoke English and I understood each word. But the words together did not describe a manufacturing plant. They described a smartphone app. I looked him in the eye. These processes have saved this company about $400,000 a year in waste reduction. Every single year for 14 years. That is not a projection from a consulting deck. That is actual money saved hitting the bottom line. Year after year after year. He smiled at me. Not the convinced smile and not the interested smile. The one where the corner of your mouth moves a quarter inch and nothing happens in your eyes. The smile that means you already decided about me. Nothing I say from now on will change anything. I completely understand, he said. But we need a broader perspective. From a broader perspective. He said that to a woman who had been looking at these machines from every angle for 22 years. I closed my folder and put it in my bag. I looked at him and gave a small nod. I understand. I did not understand. But Gus taught me one thing I never forgot. You do not fight in the conference room. The conference room is a battlefield. You do not fire without cover. You wait until you know exactly where you stand. Over the next 6 weeks, I noticed things changing. Small things at first. So small you were not sure if you imagined them. Richard stopped inviting me to certain meetings. Just the ones about strategic direction. The ones where decisions got made. Around week 3, I passed the conference room and the door was closed. Through the glass, I saw Richard at the head of the table. Tyler next to him, and 2 young people I did not recognize. None of them looked up. The next day, the minutes went out. Agenda item and operations structure optimization. I was the director of operations. I was not in that room. Then Richard started copying Tyler on emails. Tyler was someone he brought from Boston. 29 years old with an MBA in progress. Hair slicked back and always looked wet. Shirt untucked in a way he thought fashionable. When we first met, he shook my hand and said, "Denise, I have heard so much about you. You are a legend around here." He called me Denise right away. Not Miss Cross. Just my first name like old friends. After a few weeks, it became Miss Denise. Miss Denise, let me help you with that report. Miss Denise, Richard thinks this should involve more people. A 29-year-old calling me Miss Denise. I asked him to stop. He said it was just respect. I managed 65 employees and a budget of over $4 million. He called me Miss Denise like I was his 3rd grade teacher. The tone was not rude in a way you could point at. It was more subtle and more effective than open rudeness. It said, "You are nice and you have been here a long time, but you are already in the past. We are the future now." Week 6. Friday. 4:30 in the afternoon. Richard's assistant appeared at my desk. Her name was Julia and she had been there 2 months. I programmed her keycard on her first day. Her face was tight and she would not meet my eyes. "Denise and Richard wants to see you in his office." 4:30 on a Friday. Nobody schedules a meeting at 4:30 on a Friday unless it is bad news. The kind you cannot deliver at a normal hour. I turned off my monitor, picked up my water glass and took a sip. The water was not cold anymore. It had been sitting there 3 hours. I stood up and my legs felt normal. My hands did not shake. You spend a lifetime on a factory floor learning to stay calm when a machine breaks. Then one day you have to use that skill on yourself. I walked into Richard's office. A big corner office that used to be Gus's. But Gus made it smaller with a partition. He said you cannot get real work done in a big office. Richard had the partition knocked down. He put in a large conference table. Framed quotes in elegant fonts on the walls from thinkers I had never heard of. Next to him sat Michelle from HR. Early 40s, and I had known her 8 years. When her son was born, I knitted a small blue blanket and left it on her desk. She came to my office that afternoon with tears in her eyes. She said, "Denise, that is the most thoughtful thing anyone has ever done for me." She was not looking at me now. She stared at her notebook with its new leather cover. Her pen rested on a blank page. Not writing anything. Just holding the pen still between two fingers. "Denise, and please sit down." I sat. Richard placed both hands flat on the desk with fingers slightly spread. That pose from every interview coaching video. Supposed to signal openness and honesty. It actually signals nerves. I am going to be direct with you. As you are aware, this company is undergoing a significant strategic transformation. Patricia and I have spent considerable time analyzing the current operational structure. The conclusion we have reached after careful consideration. He paused. Nobody interrupted. He made himself pause for rhythm. He had practiced this. Is that your current operational leadership role is no longer aligned with the new direction? We have enormous respect for your many years of expertise. But we need a different operational philosophy for the next phase. I heard every word. But it took my brain maybe 4 seconds to translate them into something I could process. Are you firing me? We are letting you go from this role, yes. The director position will no longer exist in the new structure. Those functions will be redistributed across cross-functional teams. Effective today. Michelle will walk you through the severance details. 22 years. 8.5 minutes from start to finish. I checked my watch later. 22 years earlier I walked through that front door for the first time. Maya still needed help tying her shoes. Now she was a junior in college, and a 35-year-old in leather shoes was telling me with phrases like cross-functional redistribution that my part was over. Richard stood and extended his hand across the desk. I looked down at it. Clean and no calluses and no scars. Nails neatly trimmed. A hand that had never turned a wrench or touched raw valve metal or stood next to a running machine until its back ached. I never wanted to shake a hand less in my life. But I stood and shook it. Not because I am a class act. Because I refuse to let anyone say I responded to a business decision with emotion. He could say my style was not agile enough. He could not say I was unprofessional. Good luck, Denise. Yeah. One word. That was all I could get out. Not restraint and not dignity. If I opened my mouth wider, I did not know what would come out. Tears or screaming or something I would regret forever. I did not know which one. So I only opened wide enough for one word. Michelle stood slowly. Her eyes finally lifted from her notebook. Red around the rims. At least she let me see she felt bad. She walked me down the hallway to my desk. The hallway mostly empty. Late Friday, and people had gone home or were pretending to be busy. Denise, she started quietly. I did not need to hear it. Michelle, and it is fine. I really did not know, she said. I know you did not, and your job is not to protect my job. You are just doing your job like I was doing mine. I opened my desk drawer for the last time. 22 years, and what you can take fits in 3 items. Company policy is clear. No company documents and no data copies. Return your badge and laptop and phone. They give you a cardboard box. The same kind printer paper comes in. I put 3 things inside. A photo of Maya at age 7 taped to my cubicle wall with tape that had lost its stick. She wears a purple sweater and is missing a front tooth. laughing so hard her eyes are little slits. A small metal keychain from Morrison's 40th anniversary. Gus slipped it into my drawer the year I made operations manager. The old logo engraved on the front. The handwritten M from Mr. Morrison himself. A plain white ceramic coffee mug. A dark brown stain ring permanently baked into the bottom. 10 years of daily use and hundreds of dishwasher cycles. That stain would never wash out. That mug was exactly like me. Marks that would not come off no matter what. Kathy at the front desk saw me walking with the box. She looked at the box first, then at my face. Her mouth opened and closed. Tears ran straight down both cheeks. Not wet eyes and not welling up. Full tears running. Kathy, and it is okay. She shook her head. Denise, and you have been here longer than anyone in this building. I set the box down and hugged her. Her head pressed against my shoulder, and she cried for maybe 10 seconds. Her perfume always smelled like jasmine. The same scent every single day for years. Kathy, and I am going to come back here someday. I promise you. I do not know when or how, but I will walk back through that door. I picked up my box and pushed open the front door. The same door for 22 years. The handle felt exactly the same. The right door heavier than the left. Hinges needed oil, and I had put in a request 3 years ago. Nobody ever fixed it. Late afternoon in winter and the sky already dark. The parking lot asphalt reflecting orange streetlight. A cold yellow light. My car in the same spot. 3rd row and 2nd from the left. Gus pointed to it on my first day. Close to the door but never blocks anyone. Just always park there. I sat in the driver's seat. Key in and engine on. The heater not warm yet and the steering wheel stung my palms. I sat without shifting into gear. 1 minute and then 2 and then 9 minutes passed. A young employee I did not know walked out and drove away. Then another. Nobody noticed the gray Corolla in the 3rd row with a woman inside. Hands on the wheel and not moving. The windows slowly fogging from her breathing. The hardest thing that night was not about me. It was calling Maya. I called from the car. She answered after 2 rings in her dorm. Hey Mom, and her voice always so bright. No matter what was happening. That first note always warm. The kind of bright that after 20 years of motherhood still makes something move in your chest. Maya. Her voice shifted. What is it? And you sound really weird. What happened? Tell me. Maya and Mommy lost her job today. Silence. The hum of her air conditioner. A skateboard passing outside. Why? And you were there over 20 years. Longer than I have been alive. There is no way you did something wrong. That makes no sense. That cannot be the real reason. Maya, and stop and listen. This was a business decision by new management. A different direction. It has nothing to do with whether I did a good job. Their problem and their mistake. Not mine. I need you to understand one thing. I will figure out the next step. The thing I am best at in my whole life is the next step. Mom, and her voice cracked. I love you and I will call later tonight. Go eat dinner with your roommate. Get out of the dorm for a while. Mom is fine. I promise. I hung up, drove home, and pulled into the garage. Engine off, and the cold crept up from the concrete through my shoes. An old folding chair against the wall. Derek's chair and the canvas torn straight through. I meant to throw it out for 10 years and never did. Maybe laziness. Maybe proof he had existed. I sat in that torn chair. The streetlight outside shining through the small window. A dark oil stain on the concrete floor from an old Ford. Leaked for 5 years and I never fixed it. Moonlight through the window landed on the stain and turned it silver gray. I did not think about anything. I just sat for 40 minutes. Then I stood and went inside. Changed into sweatpants and an old sweatshirt. Opened the fridge and took out leftover lasagna. microwaved it, and ate one bowl standing at the counter. Washed the bowl and brushed my teeth. Got in bed and lay staring at the ceiling. The light still on. That loneliness has nothing to do with being alone. Maya called 3 times and I did not pick up. Kathy sent 4 texts and I did not reply. Sandy sent 1 message asking if I was okay. I wrote back 1 word. Good. It is not that nobody wanted to be there. It is that you do not have the strength to let anyone in. You are afraid if you open the door you will fall apart. You do not want to be a victim, but you have no energy to pretend you are fine. So you choose alone. A cold garage and a torn chair. Leftover lasagna at the counter. Lying in bed with the lights on. Next morning I woke at 6 exactly. 22 years of habit does not turn off like a switch. For a fraction of a second my arm reached for my phone to check work emails. Then my brain caught up. No work emails. No Morrison emails ever again. I set the phone down and rolled over. Did not sleep. Just lay in the gray morning light. That morning I understood something. You do not just lose a job. You lose the reason you woke up every single morning. For 22 years, every day I knew which building and which people and which problems. Now nothing. Complete blank. Like a page ripped out and the paper underneath is white. You do not know where to start writing. First month after being let go, I told myself it was a phase. 49 with 22 years of experience. Director of operations on my resume. The next job would come. I sent about 30 resumes that month. Every night at the kitchen table with my laptop. The same table where Maya did her homework as a kid. A scratch from her pencil still on the corner. I opened Indeed and LinkedIn and Monster. Cover letter after cover letter. I rewrote the same phrases into every variation. Some long and detailed and some short and punchy. Some starting with passionate about operational excellence. Some with results-driven leader with proven track record. Most vanished into silence. Not even automated rejections. Just silence, like dropping applications into a deep well. You never hear a splash. Second month and another 30 or so. Responses started coming, but not interviews. Rejection form emails with identical phrasing. Thank you for your interest, and after careful consideration, and other candidates whose qualifications more closely match. I could recite them from memory. Sometimes I knew which template in 3 seconds. One rejection was different, and I still remember it. Your experience is extremely impressive, however, we are looking for someone who thrives in an earlier stage environment. Thrives in an earlier stage environment. That is the polite way of saying too old. Age discrimination translated into HR English. Third month I started a spreadsheet. Same kind I built for Morrison inventory. Date and company and position and outcome and notes. By 70 applications, the notes column filled with feelings I could not name. One afternoon, I typed 2 words in the notes field. No use. 4th month and the severance ran out. 3 months of base pay plus extra weeks for years beyond 15. It sounded like money when you said it. But mortgage at $1,200 and gas and dental insurance ended and Maya still in college. That money melted like ice on hot sidewalk. You watch it shrink and cannot stop it. Mortgage due and Maya's tuition bill on the counter. 19 years earlier I started putting $100 every month into a college savings account. No matter how tight things got. Derek never contributed a single penny. Not once, and he never mentioned it. I saved alone for 19 years. About $23,000 total. Enough for 2.5 years of tuition. Maya took loans for the rest. I promised to cover half of whatever loans did not cover. Now I sat at my kitchen table with no idea how to keep that promise. I spread every bill across the table. Mortgage statement and $1,200. Electric bill and $140. Car insurance and $75. Maya's tuition invoice and $3,200. I picked up an old yellow pencil from the drawer. Maya's from elementary school with bite marks still on the end. I did the math on the back of an envelope. Subtracted until the number was 0. Then negative. I set the pencil down and put both hands flat on the table. Looked out the window at the backyard. An old maple tree that turned red every fall. Now winter and completely bare. Empty branches pointing at the gray sky. Like a hand asking a question nobody will answer. 5th month and I went to a temp agency. 3rd floor of a gray office building downtown. Fluorescent lights in the hallway. That harsh white-blue light worse than darkness. A woman handed me a form on a clipboard. I filled in my name and address and skills. In the skills box, I wrote data entry and Microsoft Office and customer service. I did not write operations management or strategic planning or team leadership. The box was 2 centimeters tall. Not wide enough for I managed 65 people and a $4 million budget. They placed me at a warehouse on the edge of the city. Data entry and $13 an hour. At Morrison, I signed overtime approvals worth more than that every week. Now I earned that number myself. The warehouse sat in an industrial park with rows of identical gray buildings. Signs above doors faded by the sun. My workstation in a room with no windows. 7 desks in a row with a monitor on each. Black cables tangled behind every screen. Air conditioning blasted too cold even in summer. The air smelled like cardboard dust and copier toner sweetness. My job was typing tracking numbers from paper slips into Excel. Box by box and row by row. 7 digits and enter. 7 digits and enter. Sometimes 6 digits because a label was misprinted. I had to walk to the back shelves and find the paper copy and verify. Then back to my desk. 7 digits and enter. 8 hours a day and 5 days a week. I ate lunch alone in my car. Turkey sandwich on wheat and a bag of plain chips. Staring through the windshield at the chain link fence. Asking myself the same question over and over. Do you go up from here or is this where the road ends? For months, I had no answer. For months at the warehouse, then another placement through the agency. Front desk receptionist at a dental office in the suburbs. The same job I did at 27 and doing it again at 49. $2 more per hour. The dentist was Dr. O'Brien and a kind man. His wall had photos of his kids in hockey uniforms. He glanced at my resume and paused. Your background is fairly extensive, and are you sure about this job? I need a job and I can do this one well. He did not ask more. Every morning at 8 in the pale blue polyester uniform. The kind that pills after a few washes. Behind the reception counter with the appointment book and insurance forms and clipboards. Exactly the same as 20 years ago. Only the woman in the bathroom mirror was 2 decades older. Patients smiled politely at me. They had no idea the woman at the desk once ran a whole building. They did not know she took calls from truck drivers at 4 in the morning. They did not need to know. They just needed their appointment time. I barely answered Maya's calls during those months. Not because I had nothing to say. Afraid if I started talking I would not stop. She texted and Mom, are you okay? Fine. Mom, what did you eat? Noodles. Mom, are you really okay? Yes. 1 word and 2 words. My daughter at college worrying about me. Me behind a dental desk pretending normal. Both of us across a Colorado winter and both pretending. One Tuesday at 4:30. Last patient gone and Dr. O'Brien cleaning tools in back. Almost dark outside. I sat alone behind the desk in the empty waiting room. 3 rows of plastic chairs and a dying plant. Fluorescent hum overhead. That was the moment. Nothing special happening at all. An ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Fingers on the keyboard and tomorrow's schedule on the screen. Tears started falling from my eyes. No warning and no sobbing. Just water running down my cheeks. I did not look up. Kept typing. The names on the schedule went slightly blurry. The lowest point is not dramatic. It is an ordinary day, and you do the same job you did 20 years ago. Tears fall for no reason you can name. You are just exhausted. Saturday came, and no interviews and no resumes. Nothing happens on Saturday. I sat on the couch with a blanket and stared out the window. Then Monday came. I drove an hour north to Denver. My GPS took me to a building in the southwest corner of the city. A factory smaller than Morrison, but freshly painted bright white. Apex Manufacturing and the sign above the door. About 60 employees. Their job posting misspelled operations manager. Left out the letter I. I almost did not apply. The CEO interviewed me himself. Frank Caruso and mid-60s with white hair combed straight back. Khaki work pants and a blue plaid shirt with sleeves rolled past his elbows. His office did not look like an executive office. Blueprints on the walls and a half-disassembled brass valve on his desk. Small wrenches laid out beside it. Please sit down, and he pointed to an old leather chair. I sat. He picked up my resume and looked 30 seconds. Set it down and took off his glasses. You worked at Morrison for 22 years. Yes. And they let you go. Yes. I know Gus, and he used to personally check every batch of those seal rings we ordered. 4-inch valve ones, and only he had that mold. A forklift passed slowly outside. Everyone in my office is wondering, he said. She worked there her whole life, and why is she still looking? Because I am not retiring and I can still do this. His eyes were not like Richard's. Richard calculated your value like a balance sheet. Frank asked who you are. That's seal ring mold, and you know the story. I found it in 1998 at a tiny supplier nobody remembered. The mold was nearly worn out. Gus let me pay to have a new one cut. Morrison paid, so Morrison owned it. It became one of our most reliable product lines. Frank pulled his chair closer with a scrape on the concrete. Okay, and here is my real question. Why should I hire you? Tell me directly, and why should I hire someone Morrison threw away? 87 resumes and 7 interviews. The first time anyone asked directly with no polite wrapping. I took a breath. Because what I know cannot be taught in a classroom or an MBA or a consulting deck. I know when a man on a shop floor 15 years is starting to fear a new machine. I know what kind of management makes the best workers quietly update their resumes. I know when to push and when to wait and when to shut up. None of that is on my resume, but it is worth something. It should be worth something. Frank was silent for 5 full seconds. Next Monday. What? Can you start next Monday? Less salary than before since we are small. But more than what you are making now. I sat in that old chair and did not cry. My throat felt very tight. Yes, and I can. I walked out and stood in the Apex parking lot. January and the Colorado sky a brittle pale blue. The air smelled like snow coming but not yet arrived. I stood there a full minute just breathing. In a calm, normal way. Like I had not done that in a very long time. Apex was a strange company in the best possible way. First day, Frank walked me through the shop. He knew every single name. Tommy, did you get that heater fixed? Lucy, that client loved your packaging, and call her back. Exactly like Gus had been. In the middle of the shop floor, he stopped. Everybody, and this is Denise, and she runs operations now. Over 20 years in this industry, and you listen to her. Then he walked away. Did not stand watching. Not testing me and trusting me. First 3 months I did one thing, and that was watch. Every process and every station. Not finding fault and understanding. Then I did what I had done at Morrison. Found the places that should move smoother and gave a small nudge. Swapped 2 steps and put 2 departments in a room for 20 minutes. Standardized the font on warehouse labels. Seconds per box times 1,000 boxes times 365 days equals real money. No magic, and just someone sitting down and paying real attention. End of year one and net profit up 18%. Frank stood on an upside-down crate at the all hands. We made almost 20% more than last year, and that is everyone here. Early this year, I brought someone in, and her name is Denise. Some of you said, Frank, you are crazy, and Morrison threw her away. The numbers answered for me. Denise, and stand up so people can see you. I stood and nodded and sat down. Not humility, and I did not know how to say this was the first time anyone had ever stood in a room and said she did this. Year 2, and we moved into a bigger facility. On moving day, Frank and I stood among unopened boxes. You know why I made you COO, and because of what you said about reading people. I knew what you meant because I was thrown away too. 20 years ago, a big company said I was too old school. I started this company with my severance check. Late second year, and Sandy from Morrison sent a text. Morrison laid off half the manufacturing team and 2 major clients pulled contracts. Patricia resigned and the board forced her out. This is not Morrison anymore. I read it 3 times and set my phone down. Picked up my coffee and took a sip. Cold. Not the thrill of winning and something else. Something pulled tight for so long inside me and slowly letting go. I wrote back 4 words. Thank you for telling me. Not good and not he deserved it. The deepest satisfaction does not need to be spoken. That night I drove to the Morrison parking lot and pulled into my old spot. Did not get out and just looked at the building through the windshield. Lights still on, but the people I knew mostly gone. Not my place anymore. I drove away and not angry or sad. Just drove. Year 3 and Frank pulled a blue business card from his drawer. Apex Manufacturing and Denise Cross and Chief Operating Officer. You have been doing this job for 3 years, and I am just giving it a name now. I ran my thumb over the raised letters. Thought about the warehouse and the dental office uniform and the bills on the fridge and the folding chair in the garage. Okay, and thank you. That fall, Colorado Manufacturing Today ran a piece. Small manufacturer winning with talent the big players threw away. My name in the article. The final paragraph said, ironically, Morrison Manufacturing, where she spent 22 years, is now on its 3rd COO in 3 years and losing market share. Meanwhile, in a much smaller plant across town, the people it discarded are quietly winning. The next day, a LinkedIn message from Richard Farr. 1 line and congrats on the article. I stared at those 4 words. 5 years ago, this man spent 8.5 minutes erasing 22 years. Now he was in an emptying building trying to close the distance with 4 words. A kind of peace I had never felt. Like deep water on a windless day and the surface flat. I did not reply, and it was not punishment. I simply did not need his approval anymore. Not even a little. The woman who needed someone to say she had done well was dead. Died under warehouse fluorescence and on a dental office chair and in a torn folding chair in a cold garage. The woman sitting here now needed nothing from Richard Farr. Not even an apology. Year 4 and Frank called a special board meeting. After it ended, he caught me in the hallway. Come to my office. A brown craft folder on his desk and thick. Apex is acquiring Morrison Manufacturing and 3 straight years of losses. We are the best buyer at the table. I stared at the folder. I want you to run the integration, and after the close you manage that building. You have every right to say no. But I cannot think of anyone more suited. I opened it and the first page was Morrison's balance sheet. 2/3 smaller than when I left. Richard's 3 departments and a wall of red. Frank and yeah. 1 condition and all personnel decisions based entirely on performance data after integration. No exceptions and the numbers speak. Frank leaned back and looked at me the same way as that first interview. Of course, and this is business. Not a settling of scores. I know. I do not settle scores. Numbers do what numbers do. Numbers never hate anyone and never forgive anyone. Numbers are just numbers. The morning the acquisition closed was a Wednesday. I pulled into the Morrison lot and the same spot and third row second from the left. A gust of winter wind hit me and dry and cold. I looked up at the gray building exactly the same as 5 years ago. Even the crooked cottonwood unchanged. But I had changed. I walked into the lobby and same floor tiles from 20 years ago. Light gray with white specks and worn to concrete in places. Kathy at the front desk on a call when she saw me. The phone slid from her hand. Kathy. Denise, and oh my God, you are really here. She came around the desk and hugged me. They said you might be coming for weeks. I came. She stepped back and wiped her eyes. So you're the one from Apex. COO of Apex, and I run this building now. She stared at me top to bottom and then smiled. Finally, and just that one word. The hallway unchanged and 2 ceiling lights still out after 5 years. Same leaky coffee machine and same smell of oil and metal. Nothing had changed and everything had changed. A figure at the end of the hall. Mike, and 22 years at Morrison, and we started the same year. He stopped and goggles on his forehead. Looked at my face and gave a single slow nod. Not a word. The loudest greeting I have ever received. My old office empty and desk in the corner with a drawer not quite closed. I set my box down and plugged in my laptop. Took out 3 things in Maya's photo and the keychain and the white mug with the permanent stain. Carried the mug to the break room and same machine and still leaking. Same grinder sound. First cup of coffee in this building in 5 years. Black and no sugar and same as always. Sat in that chair I knew better than my own couch. Laptop open and Apex login and decross and password and enter. 3 months and my integration team of 6 analyzed every department's performance. Not memory and numbers. Output and quality and cost and client retention. Richard's 3 departments all significantly below benchmark. The final personnel report on my desk Thursday afternoon in a gray hardcover folder. I turned to the last page. 3rd row from the bottom and Chief Operations Officer and Richard Farr and redundancy recommended. I did not put it there. The numbers recorded what had already happened. I sat looking out the window as the winter sun set. Yellow rectangles of light across my desk, and I looked for a long time. Not hesitation and just quiet. Letting the moment become complete. Then I picked up my pen and signed. Next morning, and a knock on the door frame. The door already open. Richard Farr stood in the doorway. Navy blazer wrinkled and tie slightly crooked. Shadows under his eyes and older than 5 years ago. Shoulders curving inward. Denise, and his voice quiet and uncertain. I heard you were in this building and wanted to say hello. Richard, and come in and please sit. My voice level and natural like water finding its surface. I pointed to the chair across from me. The same chair I sat in 5 years ago. He sat, and his eyes moved around the room. Assessed the desk and the window and landed on my coffee mug with the stain. Held there a second and moved on. How have you been, Richard? Good and doing well. He cleared his throat. So Apex is now. Apex acquired Morrison and I am managing the personnel integration. Personnel integration, and he repeated the words slowly. Translating them. Yes. So you have these assessments. I opened my drawer and took out the gray folder. Placed it on the desk and did not open it. My hand rested on top. Every integration decision based on 3 years of performance data. Revenue and cost and client retention. No one singled out and everyone went through the same process. His hands gripped the armrests and knuckles white. Your department data is data you know, Richard. Numbers trended down from your 2nd month. Every quarterly report has your signature. His mouth opened and closed and voice quieter. Back then, and the board and Patricia and I was told. I know, Richard, and listen to me. I never blamed you for letting me go. It was a business decision at that moment. You did what you thought was right. He froze completely. The look of someone who rehearsed a speech for years and just had it pulled away. I was not the person who hated him. I walked through a warehouse and a dental office and a garage and stood back up. The person across from him was not a victim. She had found a deeper quiet than he ever knew existed. He stood slowly. "Do you have questions?" And he shook his head. "HR will contact you about your exit package." Standard process, and process has no feelings, but process is fair. He walked to the door and stopped just before it. One hand on the doorframe. "Denise." Just my name and no sentence after. I waited and he said nothing else. He walked out and his shoes on the carpet grew softer. The door clicked shut and I put the folder back in the drawer. Coffee still warm and outside the sun fully dropped. I sat and felt something deep inside that had been clenched so long I stopped noticing it. Slowly and gently it let go. Not I won and not he got what he deserved. The numbers spoke and the process ran. Things returned to where they should have been. Like a screw threaded back into its own hole with a click and exactly right. That evening I drove home and pulled into the garage. Same garage and same spot and engine off. But I did not stay in the garage and went inside. Changed into a sweatshirt and poured iced tea. Not wine tonight and just tea. Pushed open the front door and sat on the wooden porch steps. Colorado winter evening and sky deep purple with gray-blue at the bottom. Stars coming out one by one from the deepest part. Air still and cold but not biting. A car passed in the distance and the sound faded. I could hear my own breathing and light and steady. My phone buzzed and it was Sandy. "Do you know what today is and 5 years ago exactly?" I stared at the screen for maybe 15 seconds. Then smiled just a little and shook my head. Spent the whole day on integration reports and next week's schedule. Had not once remembered the date. Typed back and "Thank you for telling me," and I completely did not notice. Smiley face, and then she wrote, "How do you feel right now honestly?" I thought for 3 seconds and typed "peace I think," and just peace is all. Set the phone down on the step beside me. Porch wood cold through my jeans, but did not feel like getting up. Neighbor's window lit warm yellow through the blinds. Bare cottonwood branches against the purple sky were beautiful. 5 years ago, I sat in a cold garage with no idea what to do the next day. 5 years later on a porch and did not need to know. Tomorrow did not need anything special. Not because I became a success story and because I got myself back. Frank opened the door, and that is true. But a door is just a door, and I chose to walk through. Step by step, and everyone was mine. You never know which step decides everything. The warehouse at $13 an hour, and the dental office in pale blue, and the Monday interview an hour away. You do not know, and you keep walking. No signs and no progress bar, and nobody beside you saying 2 more months. You keep walking because the only way to reach the other side is by refusing to stop. I was 49 when pushed off a cliff and 51 when I grew wings. Not at the top and at the very bottom. Under humming fluorescence of a windowless room and on a hard plastic chair and in a torn folding chair in freezing cold. They grew slowly in near darkness and a little at a time. Maya finished graduate school and works at a Denver law firm. She visited not long ago, and we sat on this porch. She asked me, "Mom, do you believe life has a second act?" I said yes, and I believe that completely. "When did yours start?" 51. She looked down at her hands and smiled. The same smile as when she was 7 learning to ride in the Morrison lot. Then she looked up. "Sooner than I thought, Mom. Later than I thought. The night is full dark now and stars bright overhead. Time to go inside. Regular work tomorrow and nothing dramatic. Just work I like and work that belongs to me. Built from the broken pieces. I have nothing left to prove to anyone. Anyway, and that is the whole story. Thank you for listening.